Hey guys, welcome back to White Cheeto Gaming, where you can find all of your basic tips on Total War games. If you are interested in this content and want to keep up to date with future guides, hit that subscribe button. Today we'll be looking at the unit roster of the Lizardmen. They have very strong melee units and access to many different monsters, but many of their units are quite slow. First up are the Skink cohorts. They may seem like just another cannon fodder unit, but they are very useful if properly utilized. They are best used on the flanks of your front lines. Use them to tie down armor-piercing units or any other elite units. This will enable your Saurus units to come in and do the real damage, or you can use them to flank the enemy frontline engagements. The Red-Crested Skinks. This unit is a cheap, high damage dealing unit that provides a good armor-piercing option aside from the Lizardmen monsters and temple guards. However, they have low armor and melee defense, which means they have low staying power. They do inflict poison, which reduces their enemy's combat effectiveness. You can use this unit to bolster your front lines wherever there are heavily armored units engaged. Bolstering allows them to deal their high damage, while also having other troops take the damage instead of them. The first variant of the Saurus are the Saurus Spears. They have lower damage than the Club Saurus Warriors, but they do provide a nice bonus versus large units, and a charge defense bonus against large units. They have high health and leadership, which means they are a reliable frontline unit. Only weakness is their slow speed and lack of shields, making them vulnerable to skirmishing units and other missile units. Saurus Warriors. These are the backbone of the Lizardmen army. They are able to hold their own against many elite infantry. They have high health and leadership coupled with decently high armor. These should be used as your main frontline unit. If you have access to the shield variant, use those instead. Saurus Spears Shielded. The fact that these guys have shields makes them the better variant in every way aside from the slight increase in upkeep. They have a slightly higher melee defense and are protected against missile fire. This variant should always be taken over the unshielded variant. The same goes for the Saurus Warriors. They have slightly higher melee defense and are protected against missile fire, which makes them the better choice compared to the unshielded variant. The Temple Guard are designed to counter Monstrous Units and Cavalry. Their downside is their slow speed and should be mainly used as a deterrent against them. They are great for holding the front lines, but they are quite expensive. It is often better to use Saurus Warriors and Spears in your front lines and keep these guys in your reserves for monster counters or cavalry. The Skinks with Javelins are a direct upgrade from their regular Skink counterpart. It is suggested to use this variant instead if you are able to handle the slight upkeep increase. Utilize them by keeping them on your flanks to bring them around the frontline engagements to volley javelins into their backs before charging them in. Skink Skirmishers. This unit is good for harassing the enemy. They are very fast and inflict poison, which further debuffs foes and prevents them from fighting effectively. It is best to keep them out of melee engagements and just harass the enemies before they get to your front lines, or flank with them from unexpected angles using their vanguard deployment. Chameleon Skinks. These are the elite versions of the Skink Skirmishers. They are better in every way, very fast for infantry, and inflict poison with their missiles. Can fire while moving, and have a 40% missile resistance. Utilize them in the same way as the Skink Skirmishers, and do not use them against heavily armored foes. The Feral Cold Ones, relatively fast for a Lizardman unit and function as their light cavalry. These should be used to chase down skirmishers and artillery or act as flanking units. They have fairly low armor, so they would take damage very quickly. Make sure to keep them away from any anti-large units. These are the Cold One Riders without spears. It is not recommended to take them as the Lizardman faction already has plenty of anti-infantry options. The Salamander Hunting Pack. This is quite the support unit for the Lizardmen. Due to them having explosive damage, they can be kept directly behind your front lines to send explosive volleys into oncoming enemies. This will break the enemy's formation, allowing your front line to get a decent frontal charge off. Cold One Spear Riders. The spear variant of the Cold One Riders, a much better option due to their anti-large bonus. They can be used to deal with enemy cavalry, which is usually the problem for the Lizardmen faction, due to the infantry's lack of speed. Keep these guys around for whenever there are any cavalry on the battlefield. They can easily deal with them. Ripper Dactyl Riders. This unit is your traditional glass cannon. They have heavy armor-piercing damage, high melee attack, and bonus versus infantry. Due to their low unit count and low melee defense, they will take damage quite quickly when left in prolonged combat. Try to utilize them for hit-and-run tactics on the frontline engagements. Horned Ones. These are an elite cavalry unit for the Lizardmen. They are the best cavalry they have to offer and can break many front lines with their ferocious charge. Try to charge them into the flanks of the enemy front lines. The first of the monstrous units is the Pharaoh Bastillodon. This unit may cost less than the Stegodon, but it is suggested to pay the extra upkeep for the Stegodons due to them being stronger in almost every aspect. The Ark of Sotek is one of the cheaper variants of the Bastillodons. It gives the ability to release poisonous snakes around the units. The snakes do not do much damage, but they do inflict poison upon all the enemies hit. This unit's main purpose is to debuff the frontline engagement while also causing fear and terror. The Revivification Crystal Bastillodon. This unit provides the Lizardman army with a source of healing. This is the only healing unit that has the ability to resurrect models outside of the undead faction. The combination of healing and the big tanky dinosaur that causes fear and terror makes this unit decent for your frontline engagements. The Kroq Gars. These big guys excel in large density melee fights. They have an extremely strong initial charge. It is suggested to send them into your frontline engagements. Their low speed is one of their biggest weaknesses, making them vulnerable to both armor-piercing ranged attacks and anti-cavalry. The Feral Stegodon. Best used against infantry. Keep these guys engaged in the frontline battle. Do not use him to chase down ranged cavalry, and keep him away from any anti-large monstrous units. Like almost every monster, they are good for breaking down gates too. Sacred Kroq Gars. Whereas the standard Kroq Gars are anti-infantry, these Sacred Kroq Gars are more generic. They have high armor-piercing values, but no bonus versus large or infantry, which makes them quite good against armored units. Keep them in the frontline engagements with more favor towards engaging them against more heavily armored units. They also have magic attacks, which makes them helpful against anything with physical resistance. The Feral Carnosaur. These are a quick and deadly unit. They excel at taking down large enemies. They have massive bonuses versus large units. Try to send this guy after the cavalry or the monstrous units. He would take them out fairly quickly. Make sure to protect him against any armor-piercing missile fire. The Ancient Stegodon with the Engine of the Gods. This unit provides a small ward save to all units around it, packing a laser beam that functions as a castable wind spell. It provides decent utility while also being a strong monster with missile attacks and anti-infantry damage. This unit is quite costly, and you should build the rest of your army around it for support. The Feral Dreadsaurian. This is a very strong unit, although it lacks the capabilities of firing missiles off its back. It has less leadership compared to the normal variant. That being said, its raw strength is quite undeniable. Keep him fighting among the frontline engagements. The regular Dreadsaurian is the same as the Feral version, but with better leadership and has a few units on his back firing poison missiles. This guy will ensure you win any frontline engagement you send him into. Pterodon Riders. These are a solid flying unit with poison missiles. Their main use is harassing the enemy, being one of the fastest units on the Lizardmen roster. They are also good for chasing off routing units. Only engage them in melee if they have used all of their ammunition. The Fire Leech Bolus variant is the same as the regular ones, except they have explosive ammo, thus allowing them to decimate infantry units on the battlefields. Try to use these guys on your frontline engagements to cause formation disruption. The Solar Engine Bastillodon provides a rare artillery support for the Lizardmen roster. It has high damage value, so it is best used to focus elite units on the battlefield. It also has great single target damage, so it can also be used for sniping down enemy monsters or lords and heroes. On top of their high damage, they also apply a unique debuff called Blinded, which heavily reduces targets' melee defense, melee attack, and accuracy. Try avoid firing at armored monstrous infantry. The Ancient Salamander. This is the monstrous version of the Salamander hunting pack. Has good missile resistance and high health. Its shots have the debuff Contact effect, which makes enemies flammable. This increases the fire damage output to further enhance the damage of your Pterodon Riders, Salamander hunting packs, and solar engines. This is a powerful combo for the Lizardmen army artillery. The Stegodon is an expensive artillery piece but has high armor-piercing damage. Their missiles are poison as well. It is more situational to what factions you are fighting. If you are wanting more armor-piercing missile damage, go for the Stegodon, but if you want more anti-infantry missile damage, go for the Solar Engine Bastillodon. The Ancient Stegodon is similar to the Stegodon, although the Ancient Stegodon can fire while moving. This enables you to send him into melee to cause destruction while also firing his poison armor-piercing ammo. Okay, so now we're going to go over our basic army composition for the early/mid-game time points. We're going to have 4 Saurus warriors with shields. These will be our main front line, along with 3 Saurus spears with shields. These guys will be placed on the flanks to guard from any cavalry attacks. And the spare Saurus spear will be put in reserves. These guys will be used to place wherever we need to go. If we have extra cavalry or monsters coming around, we'll send them that way. We have 2 red-crested skinks. These will be in the sort of center behind the main front line. These guys will be used to bolster the frontline engagements. Typically, you'll want to send them against any engagements where there are heavily armored troops. We have 2 feral stegodons. These guys will be mixed in the frontline engagement to just sort of cause terror and fear and terror, really. We have Cold One Spear Riders. These will be used to intercept the cavalry charges. So these guys will be used as our first defense against the cavalry. And if we have more coming through, we'll be able to absorb them with the sword spears on the flanks. Now we have, over here we have our skink skirmishers. These guys have vanguard deployment, so you can deploy them out anywhere up to where these gray lines are. So you can even put these guys up to the sides or completely behind them if you want, but really I like to put them all the way out on the sides like that. And what I'll do is I'll wait for the front lines to clash, and then these guys will come out and start just barraging on either the missile infantry or on the backs of the frontline engagements. And the skink cohorts with javelins, I'll use these guys with the same way I use the skink skirmishers as well. So these guys will wait for the front lines to clash, and they'll run out and start volleying into the backs of the enemy frontline engagements. Usually I'll bring them out to the sides and not directly behind them, because the sides will be, if we go to directly behind them, we'll be exposed to the missile infantry. And then we just have some feral cold ones. These guys will be used to chase down the enemy missile infantry. And then we just have our lord here directly in the center. We'll send them to support the frontline engagements. So that about wraps it up for our Lizardmen unit roster guide. Hope you found it useful for your Lizardmen campaigns. I will slowly be releasing faction unit guides for Warhammer 2. If you enjoyed this content here, make sure you drop a like. Also, hit that subscribe button to keep up to date on any guides I release in the future.